Hello and welcome to the fifth episode of Decoding Branding with Divya Shah. In this episode, we will dive deeper into understanding the core of branding, the importance of branding, and the importance of marketing communications, and how you can bring the brand heart. Well, what brand heart is, you need to watch the podcast for that. And how can you bring the brand heart to real life use cases? To talk on this topic, I have got Vanshika Mehta with me. She is a brand strategy consultant and a communication strategist for over 4 years. She has worked with brands like Heads of Tails, Soul Store, Creator.club, and many, many big brands. So, what are you waiting for? Let's get started. Hello, Vanshika. Welcome to my podcast, Decoding Branding with Divya Shah. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for accepting my invite. So, as you know, we'll be talking today about different aspects of branding. So, let's dive deeper into first understanding what makes a business a good brand.
Yeah, that's a really good question to begin with. And honestly, I think a business cannot survive without a brand. It's like a mother and child relationship. And I think good brands are built in the mind first and then the heart, like you probably have heard from a lot of people who say this. And nowadays, right, like because we live in a world of so much choice, like you just go to G2, for example, and try and look up any industry in a SaaS business, right? Any industry, any company, you'll find like 50 odd competitors, right? But what defines or differentiates one from the next one, right, is the brand that you build. And brand is an accumulation of so many things. It's experience, it's trust, it's loyalty, it's communication, it's how well are you doing on social media. There's so many things to it that it cannot be encompassed, but brand is like the mother of the business that you're building. And I think when you have a solid brand, what happens is that you automatically see your child thriving and growing in the right direction. And some like examples of like how a brand can really help your business. First of all, like you'll notice maybe your sales cycles are shorter, you'll have less customer complaints, you'll have good reviews from customers in case you messed up, right? That's a quality of a good brand. You'll be able to get word of mouth referrals, your LTV of your customers increases. So brand doesn't just touch the business, it touches so many different aspects that whoever is creating your brand, be it you or you hire someone, you need to do this very strategically with a thought of like being a business that wants to be around for the next 50 years, that impacts the other people positively. So I think, I mean, it's so quintessential. I mean, I don't even know how to separate the two at this point. Like, I don't think you can have a business without a brand, and you can't have a brand and not have a business. So it's like a mother and child relationship.
So, now that you've brought up the topic of mother and a child, let's dive deeper into the heart of the mother and understand how important is a brand heart and what are some of its real use cases.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't take this very seriously, which is where this goes wrong. They just think of it like a checklist item that they have to do. Okay, haan, theek hai, we need a purpose, a mission, a vision, values. But there's so much more to it that can speak for your brand that you cannot speak as a brand every single day. And I would think of these as like the pillars of your brand, as like who do you want to help? What do you stand for? What is the difference you're making in the world? And these things, right, they're not things that you just like create. You look at 50 of them online, and I've seen lists like 50 top mission statements, 30 top vision statements. It's not something that you can do right just by reading it. You have to
Yeah.
really feel it and realize and think like, is this something that my brand can believe in? Is it something that it can actually put out in the universe? Is it something that is long term and sustainable? Is it something that my customers care about, right? So these are the things that are so important. And like I mentioned very briefly, I mean, you need a purpose, vision, mission, values, and it can go into so many different other things, but this is basically the heart of every business. And the reason is, like, I'll tell you a very good example. Someone told me about this the other day. They're like, we know Apple for laptop and Apple for phone and Apple for iPad, Apple for this. We know Apple has like 10 really great products, right? Tomorrow, if Apple was to launch a car, would you trust it or not? Blind trust. And unanimously, the answer amongst the group of people we were talking to was, yeah, like they've done such good work already that irrespective of what they do next, we trust them as a business. And these are the things that can go back to really, when you're building your brand, being your purpose, your mission, your vision, your values. Like, Steve Jobs always said he wants to make a change in the world. And he is, right? He's making such a change that, whether he's there or not today, tomorrow, if Apple launches anything, Apple could, like, launch a car or a plane or a rocket, and you would still trust it because you're like, Apple ka dhabba laga hai us pe, they're here to make
Yeah.
a better world, right? And that's like how important these things are. Also, the thing is, a brand is not just a logical thing. Okay, I need a name, I need a logo, I need a purpose to sell to my customer. It is something to do with who the customer really is, right? And a really great example of this, for example, would be I would think of Patagonia, for example, right? Their pledge to give back to the universe. It is so tightly knitted into who they are as a brand, their purpose, their vision. And are they really doing it is the bigger question. And the answer to that is a yes. They are the first company to stand up to something that is not right, be it climate laws, be it environmental stuff. Like something happened, I think, a year or two ago, where Patagonia put out a statement saying, we are going to stand against this. So, like, that is how important it is, because this is an exchange of trust, right? Irrespective of what product you have, the brand, the feeling, the emotion, it all starts with the highest level, which is the purposes. Like, what is the change you want to make in the world? Why do you need to exist? And then you build downwards, and these things cannot just be put together and being like, ha theek hai, ye approved hai, website pe dal do. It's not as easy as that. But every brand needs something that is so core to them and their business that it makes the customer themselves want to come to you. And that again is a very strong indicator of who you are as a person and what kind of customers do you attract. Because, like, I mean, I remember when I was in Boston, there was a Patagonia store, and like two stores down there was a North Face, and then two store down there was another store. But like you'd always see a certain set of customers walking into every certain set of stores. And like even though they're like two shops away, price is not a consideration, because price wise they're all, 19-20 ka farak, how different can it be? But at the same time, you'll realize a certain set of customers that care about a certain thing walking into a
Yeah.
certain store. So I think that's the long short answer of if it's important or not.
Well, while you've mentioned, very clearly that it's important, and since it's the heart, you need it for your business to thrive. How do you think can one translate this brand heart into their communications?
Yeah, so I think we're sick of being sold to, right? As a customer, we're sick of it. We get ads on our feed, we follow 50 odd brands on our own social media by our choice. We're hearing about so many brands every day that we're sick of it, right? We want to know as consumers, what are you doing more than just selling us a goddamn product? Right? Are you giving back to a certain organization? Are you trying to change something that it's not okay? Are you helping a certain set of community of people, right? And I think when you're doing your marcoms, right, it's so easy to slip into just marketing messaging that the consumer just feels like a like 1 out of 100, right? When you put up a social media post, you're not like, I'm talking to Vanchika or I'm talking to Divya. I'm just talking to everybody, right? Which is why when you build your brand heart and you do your brand comms, right, you should talk about these things in your marcoms. You should tell them that, like, hey, we said that we would plant 50 trees this year, and here's the proof that we did it. We as a brand are not just talking, we're actually doing. And like this brand heart thing, right, it all needs to turn into action. It's not just like, "हाँ, हमने लिख दिया कि we care about the environment, but we're not doing anything," because then
Yeah.
that's a very straightforward way to break trust with your consumer. But if you're building it in such a way that it can be action, your marcoms needs to represent that. Like, for example, I remember during the Ukraine crisis, there were brands that made some very strong statements, right? Like
Yeah.
very, very strong, that we stand with Ukraine, we are doing this, we're supporting them through this is why it matters to us, our values say this, right? And that was a true test of a brand that you want to trust or not trust, right? For example, like, and these things keep happening in the world. And I mean, if you have set out on a mission to say educate 100 kids, tell us, show us, don't just sell to us. And that's why
Yeah.
that building that core so strongly is so important, because you can't say it, not do it. You can't say it and then faff about it. If you mess up, then it's a very big break of trust, which can be the deciding factor. Because brand is not just product, or it's not just, oh, when I apply this cream I like it. It's the entire experience. It's the
Yeah.
thought that you have about that brand. And I mean, a very simple way to figure out if your brand is aligned with your consumers, with what you've put in your brand strategy, call up 50 odd customers and ask them what are the three things that come up in your brain when you think about our brand, and see if that aligns with what your brand really says. Because if you are saying something but your customers are not feeling it, or they're not even able to understand it, or don't know about it, then that's a big failure on your part rather than anybody else. It's the brand owner's mistake for not putting out this kind of messaging out to the public, which they should ideally.
So while we've been talking about brand messaging and its impact, how do you feel can a business that has been around in a market for a while and did not actually go with strategic branding can measure the impact of branding once
Yeah,
they do it?
that's a really good question, because I feel the importance of branding has been there for a very long time, and a lot of people have taken it for granted, which is why they haven't like thought about it as a strategic investment. Fun fact, in our proposals we don't even write expenditure, we write it as investment only,
Same.
because that's what it is, right? It's an investment into what you're building today for the next 50 years. Um so I mean, I have definitely come across these kind of brands that have been there in the market, and they're like, कुछ कुछ जम नहीं रहा है, कुछ अच्छा नहीं हो रहा, so I think what you need to do to understand if you really have a brand is talk to two sets of people that are your customers, who are aware about you and have experienced your product or service. And then you need to talk to the unawares, which are people that might have heard of you, but you're not telling them that, hey, we're going to ask you about it. And just get their very candid qualitative feedback, and ask a lot of probing questions to each set, because like the ones that know about you will be actually able to give you things to do, and things that you can improve in your business. And the ones that don't know about you will give you a comparison of why they like you versus why they don't, or what do they like about something. And so you'll get a lot of qualitative data. And I think then the next step would be for the unaware people to give them like an hour, be like, go to the coffee shop or whatever, like go read our social media, go read our website, this is what we do, come back with your own understandings, and don't bias it in any way. Let's just let them just see publicly available information. And then ask them questions as well, that okay, you've heard about this brand, you know about this brand, but now you know about us, what do you feel? And that will give you a sense of where they are and what your brand feels to a person that doesn't know your brand. And then I think, I mean, I know we're both brand strategists, but it's important to say that if you're not getting the kind of things that you want to hear, it may be time for you to go back to the drawing board and, go down to the nitty gritties, even down to like, we want to change our positioning statement, right? Like, and that's a very normal thing, because I believe like a brand has to go through a brand refresh at least once every 2 to 3 odd years, because your customers have evolved, their needs have evolved, you're selling to different kinds of people, you know more about your customers, right? So it's a very good time, if you've done this exercise with unawares, to kind of compile and be like, okay, this is what we should be in the market, and then do a brand refresh. So yeah, I mean, I think there's no harm in doing a brand refresh. It's actually a very good thing, because it'll then put you in the right context, in the right meaning, in the right explanation that you want your brand to be in, to your ideal customer. Because I think at the end of the day, customers though are millions, right? But are you really talking to the ones who you feel you are impacting the most? That is a question that you should ask. And that's why also brand refreshes happen, because like you said, customers evolve, markets evolve, situations evolve, right? Like, imagine somebody who is trying to sell, I don't know, like going out party outfits in the middle of COVID, right? Like something like that is just such a big mismatch. And a lot of brands didn't really evolve during COVID. They realized after COVID that, oh shit, like what we're selling is not talking to them right now, because they've got different needs at this point, right?
Yeah.
So things like that. I think, I mean, there are n number of examples you can take for why you should do a brand refresh, or when. And the when question is, I don't think any of us have that answer, because it's like, it's almost like a baby, right? Like every 6 months a baby's clothes change, because they're just growing so fast. And then after a while they stabilize, right? So when you're say between 11 to 14, you might have the same set of clothes, you're about the same size, and then suddenly the growth spurt hits, and then you're back again to changing your clothes. So you need to think of it that way, like it's a new outfit for a new day for your new brand.
That's a very great analog.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So now that we're talking about, brand refresh, what do you think is the differentiating factor between a thriving brand and a mediocre brand who have probably been in the market for similar number of years?
Yeah, so a thriving brand, for example, can say so much by saying so little. I think that is one of the major defining factors. And a thriving brand will always be top of mind recall when a customer thinks about that category or that particular purchase. Like, for example, like if I want to buy tech, I'll always think of Apple. If I want to buy masala, like I might just think of MDH, right? Or Everest.
Yeah.
Like that top of mind recall, right? Like you can name any industry, any particular item, and the first brand that comes to your mind that you trust the most, that is a true test of if you're a thriving brand or not. Also, I think thriving brands are one that focus less on like push to the customer, but more of like, hey, this is who we are as a brand, right? And during COVID there were some great examples of brands that shifted from regular marketing to brand marketing, because they were like, we've done all the marketing, that jargon and all that we needed to do. There was Nike that had some amazing campaigns. There was IZGO that had a very beautiful campaign during COVID. There was Airbnb. So all of these, like, these are big thriving brands, right? And if they're pushing from like, हमने बोल दिया सारा जो हमें बोलना है, now let's focus on getting the consumer's heart and keeping them there, so that irrespective of where they are, when they need us, we're there for them. So these kind of things, right? Like, I think these are some signs. Again, another really good sign is, if someone asks you, or if there's any way to measure word of mouth, that's a really good sign. A lot of people recommend stuff on social media, right? Like, stuff like that. These are all signs of really good thriving brands. On the other hand, brands that are not doing so well, you'll see them trying to push up a mountain and try and convince a customer why they're the best. And customers also are not stupid. Like, even if you write like best formulation brought in from Japan, like, customer doesn't give a shit. Like, they're like, tell me, what is it going to do for me? Am I going to feel prettier, healthier? Am I going to have longer hair? And if yes, why should I pick you over anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think a struggling brand is going to have to keep pushing and pushing their messaging out, which at some point gets a little pissing off to a customer. Um, Another thing is, I think nowadays, specifically in D2C, because I'm involved very heavily in the space, a lot of the conversation has shifted from acquisition to retention. And retention only happens when you have a very good brand and a good brand experience, and everything falls into place. Like I said, brand is not just logo, color, product. There's so much more to it. And thriving brands have realized that retention is the name of the game nowadays. How do you engage existing customers, and how do you make existing customers buy again? Because the number of customers that can have one time buys is finite, right? Like, if India has a population of X billion is the finite number, right? You can't just magically say that, oh yeah, India has a population of this much, but mera tam itna bada hai. Like, nobody's that stupid. So retention is the name of the game in a market which is very, very clustered at this point. And customers are looking for easy buying decisions, right? And thriving brands make it easy for customers to buy, because they understand what customers want. They're constantly evolving, innovating, creating, doing fun things, and that really is the sign, I think. And I mean, if you have to go down to metrics, I mean, there are so many ways to measure, like, is my brand thriving or not? But then numbers are numbers. Numbers can always be made, numbers can always be boosted up. It's just like, I don't know if numbers are the best way to go about it. If you actually have to go by, am I a thriving brand or not? And I mean, I'm sure we have to mention the fact that good brands that are built well, that are built with the right intent, have a strong customer base, those are obviously, again, the most fundable brands. So funding mil jayega aapko if you are a thriving brand, which will make
Oh
everybody
my God.
happy. Yeah.
That was epic.
Yeah.
So what are three things that you would put in a checklist of a mediocre brand? Like, they should tick these things off and they would be on a path to become a thriving brand in, say, 10 to 20 years.
If I had to pick just three things, I think the first thing is, how close are you to your customers? How close are you that you can pick up the call and be like, hey, what do you feel? What can we do better for you? Like that customer tightness is very important in building a solid brand, because market kuch kahega, but customers needs and understanding what you can do better is what will get you in the long term game, not just building for the sake of building. I think that is one. Second is, how good is your internal brand, right? Because as much as we think that branding is external, which is logo, color, font, ye, wo, packaging, it's also the internal brand, right? Like, are your brand custodians in your brand able to give the experience to the customers that they're dealing with day in and day out? It could be ops, it could be sales, marketing, customer service, even your receptionist, right? Like down to there, do they imbibe the same values? Are they there for the right reason? And third, I would say, if you're trying to build a brand for the long term, I think just figuring out, a lot of times it's collaboration versus competition. And nowadays, like in D2C specifically, like during festival times, you see a lot of brands coming together, joining hands, sharing databases, because like I said, right, the number of people in India are finite, right? But
Yeah.
if you can cross sell with another brand, upsell with another brand, come together and do a fun collab. Like for example, like, I mean, I know right now we just heard about that whole Anushka Sharma and Puma coming together.
Yeah.
So like, how do you collaborate, not compete, and build brands in different ways that you would actually see something good coming out of it? And like, there's no real formula. I think just having an open mind to experimenting, iterating, failing, and building from there is what really works in the long term. There's no shortcut to it.
Great. So if I had to summarize that, the three things would be: how close are you to your customers? Second is your internal brand communication. And when actually we're talking about it, the very first name that popped up in my head was Tata's. Like they're
Yes.
doing phenomenal job at every touch point in India,
Yep. Yep.
right? And I forgot the third one. I'm so sorry.
Third one was who was the third one? No idea.
It's fine. You guys can just rewind and see the third point.
Yeah. When it's just like in the flow, it just like
Yeah.
happens, and then you're like, wait, what did I just say? And then
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know what I just said. Anyway,
No worries. So let's, as we come to an end of this podcast, I've got like rapid fire questions for you, which are pretty chill and little away from branding, but still a little into branding. So I'm going to give you three sets of options, and from each, you'll have to choose your favorite brand. And this has to be like very quick. Okay. The first is Sleepy Owl versus Whole Truth.
whole truth, definitely. Whole
Dunzo or Zomato.
Zomato. I just
Okay.
love that app for the messages that they have, those micro messages. I though find it very fascinating. But Dunzo's social media is like bomb. I mean, both of them are. I don't know. Like,
One, you have to
I don't
choose
know.
one.
I just like Zomato. But yeah, if I had to
Okay.
pick
Great.
between the two.
Nike or Apple.
Whew. I mean, I own both, and I own a lot of stuff from both. Um, I don't know. That's a really tough one.
Yeah.
I would think Nike because of their brand campaigns. I'm a little partial towards them. Although I do love the shot on iPhone campaign. Like, I think that was a brilliant stroke.
Yeah.
Um, I yeah, I
You
mean,
have to
I
choose
like
one.
both of them. I like both of them. Both of them
You
are
have to
actually
choose
very
one.
probably Nike, because I mean, if they're hearing this and they give me a free pair of J's, like I will love them forever. So
Okay.
because I don't need any more Apple products right now. Like my family thinks I'm psycho already. So I don't need anything more from there right now. That's my only reason. Otherwise, both of them are pretty equal.
Great. So, two more rapid fire questions, and these are away from branding: sunrise or sunsets?
Sunsets, dude. I don't remember the last time I woke up for a sunrise. If I was
Okay.
awake and saw the sunrise, that's a different story. But sunsets are happy time.
Okay. Chilling with Netflix at home, or clubbing with friends on Saturday night?
Oh, definitely clubbing. I'm a very social person. I'm out every single weekend, and my family's like, how do you go out every single weekend and you're not tired? And I'm like, I love seeing my friends. I love hugging them. I love meeting them. I love catching up. Like, Netflix is good for like, like I binge watched like 3 hours yesterday, but I get kind of bored of it. Like, I'm a people person. I want to be around people I love. And so, yeah, I'm out pretty much every weekend clubbing.
Great, great. Thank you so much for that, Vanshika. Thank you so much for coming here, sharing those insightful nuggets on branding. Thank you so much.
No worries. It was really fun to do it. And I think you structured the conversation also very interestingly because it just felt like a seamless conversation with a friend. So thank you for that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that was a super interesting and a valuable conversation with Vanshika Mehta. I hope you found it equally valuable and have taken some information nuggets from here to build your brand. So do not forget to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes wherein I bring more amazing guests from branding industry. And I'll see you soon. This is Divya Shah signing out for today.